Right, bear with me, guys. Apologies for the false start just a moment ago. So for those that are tuning back in, thanks for bearing with me. Now, this is the Ask Me Anything series, but today is a very special episode. I have my dear friend, Erika Briones, and she's a remarkable woman. She's got a phenomenal story to tell, and where she's at in her life right now, she's really doing God's work. The subject we're mainly going to be exploring and diving deeper in is emotional clearing. So for those that have had certain events or experienced certain traumas in their lives, I feel that this will be a great episode for you. She really has lived an extraordinary life, and I've had some fantastic conversations with this woman. So I'm excited to introduce you to her. I'm just going to read you a bit about her before I bring her on. Erika is an emotional clearing practitioner of the spiral. She helps a lot of people free themselves from bondage, from not feeling sexually confident. Erika shows creatives and entrepreneurs how to direct their sexual energy in a way it impacts their lives both in the bedroom and in business. Erika's life is like Dorothy from Wizard of Oz, where she is on a quest to finding the truth and meets various characters along her path. Some characters are the evil villains, and others guide her to discovering her truest expression. For Erika, this journey was all about liberating her sexuality and healing. For years, she lived a double life and now aspires to inspire other women that they can also thrive in their sexuality. Besides speaking on a various syndicated podcasts, what brings her the greatest joy in others is others discovering their path around conscious love and sexuality. Conversation. Okay. All right. Well, let me introduce my dear friend Erika. And Erika, I did mention if you're recording this on a separate microphone, that would be fantastic. So let me just see if I can get her on. Right.
And remember, guys, that there are going to be the question part towards the end. Oh, there she is.
Hello.
How are you? Can you hear me all loud and clear?
Yes.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for taking the time to do this today. I know we had a bit of a time zone blooper, but it's okay. I've just introduced you to the audience right now. And would you like, I know your story, and I find it to be a fascinating one. And I believe that there's many people listening and watching right now that could really get heaps of value from you, just sort of being vulnerable and just sort of sharing that with them. So, I mean, what is your story, Erika?
First of all, let me just be clear with the pronunciation. I love when people mispronounce my name because I get to weave my little jingle. So my name is Erika. You do not have to write it's focus on the ka, like I'm
ka,
gonna
Erika.
Yeah. Erika, yeah.
Okay.
So I love this. I love pop culture. I love movies. I did film, and one of the first movies that I saw in college was The Secretary, and it's basically a BDSM movie, which we could totally get into BDSM later. It's about this secretary who is a cutter, and so she's really depressed, and then she eventually meets this other guy named Mr. Gray, who is a masochist, and she basically replaces her pain of cutting for being spanked. And they have this masochist dub-sob relationship. And so I'm watching this in college, and I'm thinking, this is amazing. Like, I would love to learn more about this culture. But anyways, that was one of the first films that got me into this world of BDSM. But my story is kind of like Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, right? Mm-hmm. And Dorothy is trying to click her heels and get home. And for me, that symbolizes like connecting back to yourself, back to your soul's purpose. But for me, it was not an easy quest. For me, it was about experiencing different levels of taboo. For me, it was escort work, it was Tantra, it was BDSM. And, you know, it wasn't all as easy as it seems. Sex work seems very glamorous. That's what it is. I'm not going to share the rose-colored glasses because I'm going to paint it how it is. And I put myself in a lot of dangerous situations where I definitely feel like my life was like a movie. But
Sure.
for me, I was living a double life. And it wasn't just through those times. It was since I was a little girl, when I was sexually abused by my stepfather, who put
Right.
me
I was
in
going
a
to ask
cult.
what kind of led to that.
What led to that was
Which you're going into now, yeah.
my sexual abuse. So that's a little bit of the story in a nutshell.
Right. Okay. So, so you've experienced this trauma, and thank you for being so open about that. It must be hard to talk about it every time.
It's actually easier to talk about it every time.
Right. Okay. So, at what point in your life did you kind of move towards that path? You've had that childhood trauma, and then, you know, you said you watched The Secretary and this, at what point, I mean, how did you get into all that?
It was.
Did you meet certain characters along the way that defined that path?
There was certain characters along my path. The first character was, I would say this, he was a cross-dresser. He was someone who was like, you know, discovering his sexuality. He was this is interesting because this is actually new for me to share because I'm still kind of piecing the story together. But the first character was someone exploring him coming out of the closet. And he says, there's a website for girls to make more money. And it sounded very lucrative. It sounded really lucrative. I was a preschool teacher and, you know, I just graduated from from college. It felt like high school because I've learned more in high school than college in some ways. And in my experience, I was actually going through a big depression. You know, my depression was my ex left me for another woman. It was kind of like the song "Someone Like You," the Adele hit #1 song, "Someone Like You."
Like you. Yeah, okay, I won't sing it.
So it was literally like that song was exactly like what I was going through, and I felt like it was an anthem for a lot of women. And so when I heard that song on repeat, it was like the soundtrack of my life. And I said, well, my life is shit. I'm not really happy with where I'm working. I might as well, you know, live the path of darkness. You know, it's kind of like the Darth Vader. He just chose the dark path, and that was just what my mindset was at the time. You know, I was like self-sabotaging my trauma because of what I was going through.
So let's just go into that a little bit more then. So what were like the highs and the lows? Obviously you just tapped into depression there and you felt like, you know, you just continue to live the path of darkness. I mean, you know, there was obviously a time where you mentioned, you know, not going to like blow any smoke up anyone's backside. It was glamorous. You did, you know, live the life of Riley. But at what point did it get to such a low that you thought, you know what, something's got to change?
The point it got low on the path, there was many moments. It wasn't just one moment. There was many moments that alluded to that this isn't the path. Right. And, you know, I first got into this work kind of like unconsciously. It was just because it was a cheap thrill and, you know, it seemed to like help me out. But one of the characters on my path was these women that were really ghetto. I don't want to like say their race, but they were just so focused on the money. They were like the typical gold diggers, you know, cheesy meme if you can find it, where they were just like focusing on counting money and they were focusing on like humiliating men, and that something didn't feel right about it. Right. And if you ever watched the movie Hustler, like with Jennifer Lopez, I don't know if you've ever seen
You
Hustler
know,
with Jennifer
I
Lopez.
haven't watched that one yet, but I'm going to after this.
Okay, well, encourage you to watch it. But for
Mm.
me, when I watched that film, I was actually kind of sad because it's not what, the industry is. Because in every industry, there's going to be those girls that are going to see the masculine as a piggy bank. Like
Right.
literally, they only see the masculine as, like financial needs. And for me, when I was with these women, they were always talking about um, how men are so gullible, how they're so stupid. And I have enough emotional intelligence. I have enough male friends to know that's not true. Um, and I understand that like certain men go to those women because they're also wounded, or maybe they also don't feel enough. I'm not saying this is the case for everyone. Everyone has like their own spin on things, but these women literally painted men to be a stereotype. And
Right.
um, in my case, I said, this is not true. This is not true that all men are this way. And that was one of the lows for me, was like, something doesn't feel right. My relationship with the masculine is not going to be the same
So,
after that.
and with that, like you obviously shown a bit of, you know, as you say that girls were just seeing them as like walking ATM machines, and you obviously developed a bit of empathy for the
I
masculine, and you know why would the gentlemen that were using, you know, these girls and yourself for your services, what were their reasons? Like, I mean, did the experience you had with men, you know, using these sort of services, did it change your trust in men moving forward, and perhaps in your own private relationships? Because there's got to be various different reasons, right?
Yeah, there's different reasons. And for me, not all the men that I saw were good men. That was another downfall. That was another character.
Right,
The evil villain, or the dark masculine. The dark masculine is goal oriented. The dark masculine is focused on, has kind of like, they cross boundaries. They don't really know they don't really know about etiquette. They don't know about intimacy. Intimacy for them is just, hey, she's a pretty girl, and it's their job to fulfill my needs. It's very like 1920s type mentality. But
yeah,
there was a few men that kind of surprised me on the path. And as clients, they said, why are you doing this? You're a
right.
really smart girl. And so when I had a few of those clients, I was like, wow, there's actually a few men that, um, they have a glimmer of hope.
But some of these guys were like married and that, right?
Oh yeah. I've
Yeah.
I've
So
seen
that,
I've seen married guys, I've seen black guys, I've seen Asian guys, I've seen little people, I've seen women, I've seen guys that were super religious, Jewish guys, police officers, celebrities. I've seen all types of men. There was not one man. All of their reasons were either for like the high caliber, they were bored, they were distracted, they didn't know who they were, they lost control. There were themes of, abandonment. There were themes of like, they just wanted an adventure. They wanted to feel novelty, that
right.
feeling of taboo, risk taking. So there was different themes for different people.
Do you feel that like that might, you know, one would perhaps go in that direction because they failed to communicate those desires and needs within their own relationship?
Well, it is true that in their relationship, it was either not allowed or they weren't understood. As
Right,
much as they did everything to work through it with their relationship, their partner was not giving them their needs. Their partner
right,
was not making them feel understood.
right. So it
And
really
so
does
when they,
emphasize the point of like you've got to remove the fear from communicate your needs and desires and wants in a relationship, because if they're not going to be communicated inside, they're going to be communicated with someone else outside.
it will be communicated outside.
Right,
And the thing is, this is where right now we get to practice negotiation skills, which is one of the things I learned with my sex educator friends. And it's really important to communicate, okay, so you don't like this. So what's a yes to you? How can we make this work in a way that's fun, something that's win-win? So that's where you bring in play. And it's just a matter of like willingness. It's all that it is. It's like willingness and willing to get out of your own way.
Right, right. So, I would say that perhaps you must develop some sort of numbness when you're in that kind of work, right? And because I'm really stimulated by the psychology of this. I've developed empathy. Before I was very ignorant, right? But as I've matured, I've met women out in clubs and stuff. I've been in nightlife for a long time. I can as soon as I see a girl who looks like she's working, like, I just know. I know the outfit, I know the etiquette, I know the behavior. I can just see it a mile off. And before I was very ignorant. I used to think less of these people. But after actually giving these sort of people a time of the day, I developed empathy for these people. You never really know their full story as to why they've chosen to go down that path. And as you've shared with us today, your story is very unique, and it does, naturally, you feel for that person. So what I'm trying to allude to is, there's a certain level of intimacy you explore with someone, and how do you guard your emotions from that? How does you go numb, and then how do you revert back to actually be in a position where you can receive love and communicate love? Because there must be a certain conditioning that you have to do on yourself to be able to do that sort of work, and then to accept love in your life again. That's got to be a lot of work.
It is a lot of work, and it comes down to lying. You get to learn how to lie to yourself, and it's by playing on a role, being a character. And that's why when I talk about pop culture and films, I mean, I love films because they basically teach you how to put on this like identity. And
Right.
and Jim Carrey talks about it. Depression is where you don't know who you are as that character, right? I mean, actors, and I've talked to a lot of actors who get depressed because after playing so many different roles, they kind of lose who they are. They're like, I don't
Wow,
know what
that
it
makes
is to,
sense.
yeah. So for me, I was,
It was an act.
watching, it was an
Mm,
act.
mm.
And as much as you would be in denial, for me, I was in denial that, I'm not playing this other person. But let me tell you something. There was a moment where I didn't even know my name. So the reason I emphasize
Wow.
my name the way it is, it's not like Erika because it's a cute, marketing thing. It's not. It's because I was at an event one time, and my friends were like, so what should we call you? And I'm like, call me by my other name. But then it would really confuse me, and I would see other people, and I said, I don't even know what my name is. I literally did
Wow.
not know how to embrace my name. I didn't like my real name. I didn't like my other name. So I was completely messed up in the head.
So you literally, like, for you to move away from this line of work, you had to literally change your name to try and identify with the next, like, God, that's crazy. Like, trying to transition out of that because you've identified yourself as this character for so long, and how that's empowered you. You've lived this sort of fantasy, as it were. And then you've realized, in order for me to make this transition to the next day of my life, I need to identify as something new. So you've gone even to the extreme as to change your name to identify as this new individual.
See, the thing in any industry, when it comes to the name, some people say, oh, that's my stage name, right? That's the typical go-to is, this is my stage name. This is
Right.
just my other identity. But what girls in the industry don't know is girls don't know that they're also playing into that stage name. That like you're putting on a role every time you go on stage. You have to put on this new identity. And if you've been a performer, I've been a performer, I've danced, I've traveled all over the world. Salsa dancing, you have to
Yeah.
put on that performance guard. And
Yeah.
it's a guard, right? It's a
Right.
mask. It's like, I'm here to be sexy. I'm here to create that fantasy. So you're going to do everything to energetic do that. But at the end, it's like, that's not me. That's not who I am. I'm actually a sweet girl. So if I play the dominatrix, I'm like, I really could. But at the end of the day, I'm actually really submissive. I'm actually romantic. I'm someone who has dreams, fears, hopes. But when you're
But
playing
then,
this other character, Yeah.
But then
Go ahead.
who do you get to expose that to? Because, this is what I'm trying to say. Like you're this character, but really you want to take the mask off, and you do want to be vulnerable to someone. How does that? That's what I want to try and get to. How do you get to that place?
Well, there's two different versions. There's the version of me now, and there's version of me before. The version of me then, when I was dating, was extremely difficult because I was not fully present to my emotions. I was not fully present to looking the guy in the eye. I wasn't fully present of who I was, and it was like I was even trying to sell them on who I was in the date. Like I'm this amazing, talented woman, but when it came to sharing my shadow, it was I would only share pieces of it. I would share like my childhood, but I wasn't really present to, hey, I'm actually hurting right now. I'm actually scared. I'm actually going through some intense things that I can't even open up.
Right.
And there was one person in my journey who I dated. He was an amazing guy, but I remember watching 500 Days of Summer. The reason I
Hmm.
say that is because I was Summer. I was this summer person. And
Right.
so I watched this movie. I got triggered. I said, oh my God, I have to leave because I'm a fraud. So, and again, I told him my real name, but I felt like I was so disconnected by that archetype that I said, I don't even feel like I'm being myself with him. And I would leave in the middle of the night. I would self-sabotage the relationship. And I would just say, hey, this isn't going to work out. Um, you deserve better than this. And so because of that, because I was living in a different mindset, I was lying to myself. And the person I am now, full honesty. There's nothing to hide.
Yeah. Yeah. So you were like making up lies, you were manipulating, and then when that didn't work, you just self-sabotage and just so what you to not reach a level of vulnerability.
Yeah. And vulnerability at that time was over emotional. And
Right.
that's the thing that people mistake is vulnerability is, oh, she's crying, she's, damsel in distress. For
Right.
me, that was my whole identity of being vulnerable. It's like I have to cry, I have to create this scene, I have to have a catharsis, right? But now it's like, no, when you're vulnerable, you gain wisdom, you separate the emotion from the experience. You say, this is what's present for me. I've noticed that I'm feeling really sad. I'm like my head is spinning. You just get to be present with what's happening internally, and you don't take it personally. You know that it's something that you need to share to get off your chest. It's not something because you need to be validated or accepted.
Right.
So that's the thing is my experience with the word vulnerability was a whole day and night experience.
Right. So what would you say? What are the steps? What are the actionable steps for someone that finds himself in such a situation to get out of it and live a somewhat sort of normal life or get
And
ready for
this
the
is
next
for
chapter in their life? Because surely, I mean, you can't create a family or something when you're living like that.
Yeah. So for whoever watches this, I'm guessing someone who's in the industry, like that's where my heart is to like speak to those women that are in the industry. I would say the first thing is like be real with yourself. Like look at yourself in the mirror and really ask yourself, who am I? That's the first important question you have to ask yourself. I'm not saying what's your job, how much money you make. It's like, who are you being? People have, like, even my clients have a really hard time with this question
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, we're not the skin that we're in, we're not the character that we're playing. We are love, we are gratitude, we are,
Yeah.
our values. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is, being really honest with like the lies that you're with and forgive yourself for those lies. Don't just say, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, because that's easy to say that. It's very trite. And you have to be honest with the lies, the things that you have not even said to yourself. The reason I say that is
Wow.
when I journaled, because everyone journals, I never journaled about my life. I never journaled about my secret life. There's no, up until until I started doing my sexual healing work and I started getting into leadership training. That's when I started looking at my timeline and said, wow, this happened. I completely forgot about this because I distorted myself from that reality. I separated myself and pretended that everything was normal. This industry is not normal. It's taboo, it's glamorous, it has its highs, it has a lot of highs, but you have to be honest that it has a lot of lows. There's going to be, you know, men that have a lot of trauma. There's going to be a lot of experiences that you're going to be a no to, and you're going to have to sacrifice. That's the part of the industry that you have to be honest with yourself. And then the last thing is, you know, find a mentor who understands you. Find a sex positive community. A sex positive community was like, you know, how Dorothy finds those characters at the end. For me, it was like, I finally find these really good characters, like maybe the lion who has a heart, and they discover who they are. I found that community that they were able to accept me for my past, for my double life. And I was able to say, hey, I'm a little fucked up here, but you get me, right?
Yeah.
That's
How
important.
many lions with hearts do you feel that you pushed away whilst you were going through all of that?
Uh,
Because that's another thing, right? Like you got people that sincerely probably love you around you, but you're just living like perhaps a chaotic kind of cycle of a lifestyle. It's just
I
kind of
met a
pushing people
lot.
away.
For me, it was a lot of the men, and it wasn't just that. It was like I also um, played the dumb card, or I played, you know, I did it by either drinking a lot of alcohol. I didn't do any drugs. I didn't do cocaine, thank God.
Mm.
But for me, what kept me sane is, you know, it was dancing. It was my artistry. But as for the those lions or those men that I was dating, I think I self-sabotaged it by doing everything I can to not to be the wrong woman. You know, I was like,
Yeah.
I wanted to mess up. I wanted to like even scare them or say I love you because it would scare them away. I would act I would act naive. I would act like that on purpose, but that's not who I was. That's not who I was on the deepest level. On the deepest level, I was nerdy. I didn't share like my little girl. I didn't share my innocence. I just shared them a possibility. And
Right.
that possibility was kind of painted in another way. It was like, oh, have to be another character to play, right? The fantasy woman.
Wow. God, it's
Yeah,
exhausting. Sounds exhausting.
it is exhausting.
Jeez. Wow. So, okay, look, you've gone through this path, you know, and it's extraordinary what you've done, you know, to get to where you are now. Um, so you've met your characters, your support network, the people that are going to guide you through, you know, down this beautiful yellow brick road, right? What does life then look like?
Life looks,
Like, bring
I
us
mean,
up to speed is what I'm trying to say.
I can say that even when you start living, like accepting and owning who you are fully and, you know, transition out of the work, maybe start your own career, it's still not easy. But I will
That's what I'm
tell,
saying. I mean, it's an easy thing to
it's,
suggest, but how does one replace that amount of income, that lifestyle with something sort of substandard?
well, first of all, the biggest reality check that you have to embrace is when you transition out of the work, you have to let go of the addiction to money,
Right.
addiction to the wrong way of getting money.
That must be so
And
difficult.
it is at first
Hmm.
until you start really looking at your value. And it's not about, you know, the external things. It's about my compassion, how I listen, how I love. Those are the things that people care about, is the little smallest things about you. They don't care about your clothes, they don't care about the makeup you're wearing, they don't care about like the people that you've, you know, worked with. Like, it doesn't matter.
Hmm.
It doesn't matter who you were. What they care about is who you are now. And for me, you know, I've done so much work. Like, I will even be honest here, like even 2 weeks before um, the the lockdown happened, I was still doing some work on the side, and then I was talking to this amazing guy that I love that I'm
Yeah.
currently dating, and I told him like my intention is to be a stand for myself and to leave the industry, and he was a stand for me. So this is a big honesty share for me.
Yeah, I
And
want to
I
thank you for sharing. That's so open.
yeah, I've been sharing this with a lot of people, and I said, well, I want to be able to date without having this in the back of my mind, because coming from the trauma that I've experienced, which I haven't fully shared how deep that was, and we don't have to share now,
Yeah.
um, this was holding me back from my greatness. This was holding me back from truly being present with clients, truly connecting with people. And if you're someone who wants to have a dream, um, whether a sex coach, having this in the back of your mind, living the double life is still going to haunt you at the end of the day. So for me, I said, I want to come clean. And in a way, for
So
me,
brave. So brave.
this,
Really.
this, this whole Corona thing has been a blessing. It has been a blessing because now I am living my dream. I do have clients. Um, Now I have to be online. And you know what? This is great. This is what I've been asking for. This is
Right.
what I wanted.
Right.
And I'm not here to shame the industry because it's taught me a lot. It has taught me a lot. I've gained amazing mentors. I have grown so much. I'm connecting with you. And I'm also able to hold space in a way that, no one is able to hold space for people saying, hey, I feel safe with you. I can tell you anything. That's the
Yeah.
thing with me, is like I feel almost like a priest or a priestess, where I get to really just being able to hold people and not judge them for what they've gone through.
Well, let's take a definitely a deeper look at that. I mean, what does that sort of work look like now? You know, the emotional clearing. I mean, what is your process that you guide people through, and how do you get to the bottom of their problems?
So emotional clearing is really looking at the past that you've lived, right? So in my case, it was like the shame, the guilt, the dogma, which is root
Yeah.
chakra level. And
Yeah.
this is about safety, security, stability. So if you're not feeling worthy, if you're not feeling deserving, if you're not feeling significant, those emotions are going to hold you back from living your truest purpose. And if you're coming from guilt or shame, it's going to lower your immune system. If you have stress, it's going to raise your cortisol. Of course, you know this. Cortisol is a stress hormone. And if you have a lot of it, it can make you sick. It can make you
Right.
really sick.
Right.
And it was making me really sick. And so once I signed up for the Spiral, I found a community that there was sex coaches. There was so many different types of mentors. I have my wealth mentor. So my whole relationship to money is so healthy. But emotional clearing is like, let's look at the past. So it's like the Groundhog's Day. So another movie, um, the Groundhog's Day is where you feel like you're still living the same life every single day, and you wake up and
Yeah.
nothing changes.
Right.
And when I started to really look at that, I said, I don't want to live in this loop. I don't want to live in the same story, the same habits, because it's exhausting. It's really tiresome. Um, and when we look at your clearing, we look at the emotions, we look at what's holding you back, we look at how this is related to money, sex, and your relationship to self and self to other. And, we work through different frameworks, but, people don't care about the how. People don't care about how does it work, because I can really nerd out about it. It's a process that really gets you present of your awareness. And for you to come to a place of trusting yourself. That's really the intention, is getting you to the place of neutrality. Neutrality, the core thing about neutrality is, do I trust myself? Do I trust others? When you come from that place, every day you can just rewrite your own narrative. You get to rewrite your hero's journey, your heroine's journey. It might not be Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz. It might not be Groundhog's Day. It could just be your own movie trailer. You
Right.
know, like it doesn't have to be a different life. It can just be you.
Yeah. I do a lot of similar work where, you, you, you guide a client to a very uncomfortable place. And more often than not, it's that place where they've never shared it with anyone, and they know it's there. They know it's deep inside, but it's that feeling that's controlling them. And it's, as you said, it's the movie that keeps on playing back in their head it's the movie they don't really want to watch. And it is quite an extraordinary process. It really is, when you get them to address that issue and take control of that animal. It's like, it's not quite the erase button, but it just allows you to move forward. So I think, the work you're doing is very special, and it's needed. It really is. We've all got that something inside us that we've experienced that we're perhaps just holding onto for a bit too long. But yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, what do you think about, when you're telling your story there? I'm just starting to think about the different sort of emotions and behaviors that perhaps could come into the mix. I'm thinking jealousy, I'm thinking envy, I'm thinking anger. What's the reframe? What's the reframe? How do you move away? I mean, I have a certain way that I help people move away from being like with jealousy, right? How do you reframe when you're working with clients, or the work you've done in yourself? How do you remove envy, jealousy, and anger? Because I feel like these are very sort of like pent up emotional states to be in.
Of course, and that's the emotional work. It's like yesterday I met someone who doesn't really know how to express anger. It's just very quiet. It's like,
right.
I'm just going to keep my mouth shut, but there's a fire there, right? And that fire is like, I want to shout, I want to do something. But for us, it's like, actually, I would invite that person to release it, to have a catharsis. And I'm not saying to yell or hit something. It's like, maybe underneath that anger is recognition that you're afraid of losing something. It's usually a person. So
Okay.
for us, it's like, what does your relationship to jealousy look like? For some people, it's self-sabotage. For some people, it's acting dramatic. That was my whole thing. It was either running away and it was unhealthy. But the thing about clearing is, a lot of people have that whole mistake. It's, we're not clearing, we're not deleting. It's not when you go on your phone, you press clear and everything deletes itself. It's not that easy. It's about awareness. Okay, I'm noticing I'm feeling angry. As soon as you catch the anger, okay, how can I pivot? And that takes a lot of like really looking at yourself, really looking at your shit. And it's like, okay, I'm angry. I'm obviously, when I get angry, I can be this type of person, or I could choose to be a different type of person, right? It's really about your narrative and your awareness. And for me, when I was jealous, I would get super like violently angry, not crazy angry, just like angry with myself, where I would drink. It would cause me to spiral downwards. I would go into depression.
What would be the trigger for you?
Jealousy. A guy with another woman.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And I'm at a point where I'm learning compersion. For me, the way that compersion is where you get to be excited for your partner. You're like, okay, you're setting the intention. You're setting the intention that when you're with your partner, you're going to embrace that this is for them. You have to trust their discernment. And for you, it's like practicing, I'm really turned on by this. Oh my goodness, this is something that I am asking for. I get to practice loving them. And it's not about you. It's like when you go out there and you watch a movie, you eat something good, you want to share that. And so it's like, okay, I want to be excited for you, for you watching this movie, or I'm excited that you had a really good meal. Oh, wow, I'm excited that you had this experience with this woman, right? You have to kind of frame it that way. At first, it's not going to be easy.
Right.
Does that make sense? It's like,
yeah, I mean, it could be like, for those that are in a relationship, perhaps, maybe it's the fact that sometimes they have to meet women that are associates, colleagues, or whatever. But just the fact that that's another woman spending time with someone that you're intimate with and you love, even though it's completely platonic, it may still trigger a bit of jealousy. Even if that your partner talks of of fondness of this individual. I've experienced it myself, so I completely understand what you're saying. It's like taking that little breathing space and just go, okay, what is my auto response? Okay, it's that jealousy thing. How do I reframe it? Okay, well, I'm really glad you had a nice dinner with your colleague. It sounds really great. It's just,
Yeah.
I completely get it. And it's such a hyper aware thing. When you control that, like it's just like a flush of negativity gone. I mean, I got rid of jealousy when I was super young.
Well, that's my intention for this year is, dating someone that you feel so comfortable with that you have that ability to communicate. You don't hide anything back. And I'm not saying that you're not going to feel anything. Of course you're going to feel anything. The first thing is acceptance. You have to accept that that's exactly how you feel. I feel angry. Great. At least you're acknowledging that, because if you're ignoring or if you're avoiding, that's when you're avoiding yourself. Like,
right.
For example, my mom, she would just yell at me and she'll be screaming. I'm like, Mom, you're angry. She's like, no, I'm not angry. I'm like, you're yelling. You're angry.
Yeah.
And I come from, Latina. So Latina women, like there's a lot of fire, right? So I'm able to recognize it. I'm like, oh, okay, obviously my voice is getting a little bit higher.
Why is that? Why is that with Latin women? Like, it just seems to be like, like, it's a cliche, it's a stereotype, but it's just true. Like, why?
It is true.
Why?
It just comes from religion, like it all comes down to like our, being controlled by religion. You're a bad girl if you do this, and then you'll be spanked, right? Like the discipline. There's a lot of discipline in the Latin culture. There's a lot of like work hard. You have to like, work hard in the fields, and out of anger, it's just because of like, it comes down to like not feeling worthy. And I mean, there's a lot of Mexican history that I'm still learning about. There's, our past around the Latin culture. There's just a lot of expectations and pressures. I need to, like, if you're like me, who's lived in America and I've been raised American, and yet I also have that expectation to speak Spanish and to like learn both cultures. It's really frustrating. So for me, it just comes with the culture. It's just a cultural thing. But
I don't know.
Thing. It is a cultural thing. I could say it's blame it on the orange guy. Maybe that's why we're being even more Latina, but yeah.
Excellent. God. What else do you want to share with us, Erika? I mean, what else with the work you're doing now? What other than emotional clearing? I mean, what other sort of things can people learn from you?
What they can learn is, I think what makes me different is embracing the awkward. I'm, as someone told me, I'm adorkable. I'm adorable, but I'm a dork.
Right.
I have my moments that I'm naive. I have my moments that I'm not perfect. I'm not present, but every time I'm working with my trauma, I'm learning to love more. And so, what I'm learning about myself is that I'm a loving person. I'm patient. And the more that I get to know myself through just these conversations, wow, I feel like I'm living my life. I'm not hiding. People think that freedom is like freedom of time. No, the biggest freedom is freedom of expression. If you can't really share your truth, then who are you really being?
But someone that's come from your background is so difficult. And I keep saying, but you are an incredibly brave person.
It is, and
it's Jekyll and Hyde.
It is like Jekyll and Hyde, and it's going to be difficult in the beginning. If you are living a life for a long time, it's going to be difficult, and it's going to show up in your relationships. It will. And for me, it was showing up in all my romantic relationships where guys would tell me, "You're such a liar. Why are you lying to me?" And I'm like,
Wow.
"No, I'm not lying to me." And then the more that I keep coming clean about my story vocally, it's healing for me. And you just telling, you don't have to go to a therapist, go to a friend who's able to listen to you.
What's
And
the
that should be,
what's the advice for, you know, I sometimes get clients that have, you know, they've had past experiences of escorts through frustration or, you know, filling various needs. And I've had before a guy get caught up. You started off using the services of one and actually caught up in the idea of being in a relationship with one. But really he just got, you know, I mean, he was just getting used, this guy. And
it was.
it all ended up going to court. I mean, he bought her a car and, you know, it was just crazy. But is it possible? Is it possible for the guys out there that have kind of have this idea that they want to date someone in the sex industry? Like, or is it just
It's
something that like you like, look, just don't do it. Wait till they like out. What's your kind of advice?
um if they're meeting a woman who's willing to do the work, who's like, "Hey, you know, this, yeah, I'm in this industry and obviously it's not what I want to do." And you
Mm,
can just tell that they're actually putting in the work. It's possible that you can have a healthy relationship with them. And I've met women in the industry, you know, either BDSM or Tantra, that they just have a really good communication style.
you
They're
have
able
to be,
to
yeah. Free from
um,
lying and
free from
all that kind of stuff.
lying. Honesty is a big one, transparency. And again, if they don't have a sex positive community, it's going to be impossible to heal. You know, find your local sex educator. I recommend read about sex, read Mahalko. He's one of the top experts. He's been, you know, someone on my path. One of the best parts of my characters was discovering my sex positive community. And
Yeah,
for me, that was when I found the end of the brick road and I got to see like the wizard wasn't everything it seems, you know, like some
right,
people
right.
are not everything that they are.
Beautifully put.
Yeah.
Great. Erica, I mean,
So
geez,
hopefully that answers your question, right?
yeah, it does. It does. So anyone listening, because I just meet guys like that all the time, you know, that they get caught up in the idea of it, caught up in the whole fantasy of it. Um, how let's open up. We've got a bit of time left, so let's open it up to see if anyone's got any questions. So people who are still watching, if you've got any questions for, I'm being conscious of how I say your name now.
So you don't have to roll your R's, but you could
All right,
focus on the ka, Eddie, ka.
Erika, Erika,
Yeah.
Erika. If you got any questions for Erika about emotional clearing, about, you know, anything, you know, anything that could possibly help you, uh, or to both of us, throw it out there. There is one in the question box. Let me see what that is. Okay. Labina says, in the presentation, you mentioned the spiral. What's that?
It's a journey of 22 emotions. We basically get to look at your experience, your relationship to different emotions, jealousy, anger, pride, and we work with 3 different frameworks: map of consciousness, spiral dynamics, chakra system. It's a very intricate system where we look at, you know, we look at the chart of emotions, kinesiology, and you just get to be present to like who you're being and what's holding you back. What's the primary emotions that are holding you back? And a case example, just recently, a client, speaking of like dating, my client was like a brick wall. He does not let love in. And then he says, "I can't believe what happened. I just met this woman that I'm dating." And he's like letting love in. They're being honest. And this was after level 2 of the spiral, which is about sexuality. So level 2 is about creativity, but our sexuality is also related to procrastination, self-sabotage, self-worth. So if you're looking to really clear your sexuality, this people always tell me their sexuality gets heightened, their awareness around it is different, And so that's one of the symptoms, the side effects of the spiral. It's either your sex life gets amazing, you make more money, you're more creative. So that's kind of the spiral in a nutshell. And I'm one of the practitioners of the spiral.
I love how you put it, like your relationship with different emotions.
Yeah.
Again, just increasing that awareness of what your body's responding to, just listening,
Yeah,
that inner observation.
and it's, again, it's not like I want to delete anger, I want to completely transmute it. Like, you have to have acceptance first of all, and if you deny your emotions, you're not human. Like, you're still going to have emotions. And the other thing is, when we get older, our primary emotions are angry, sad, horny, hungry, right? But you actually have 22 emotions.
It's such a simple life when you put it like that. It should be, really, shouldn't it?
Yeah, but we have frustration, we have terror, we have, in the bladder section, the water element is because it relates to sexuality. There's paralyzed will, there's fear, there's dread, there's anxiety. There's so many emotions. There's love, there's peace, there's harmony. We could go on and on. And when you start to get present, you're like, wow, I didn't recognize that I was like suppressing some of these emotions.
It's great work you're doing. I mean, I can identify with such issues of the people that I've worked with, and then some issues I've had myself. It's needed. It really is needed. You're doing the work of God. Let's see if there's any questions on the feed. Guys, if you're still watching, there's a question box at the bottom of this broadcast. Pop your questions in there or drop them on the feed. I'm just going to have a quick scroll through, see if anyone has. Let's have a look. There's no man as a boy who sees the world. And how are you coping through the pandemic, Erika?
There you go.
I did it. Erika.
Yes.
It's got like a Latin kick on it. Ah.
Yes. Yeah. I love my London family. How am I doing with this corona? So interesting. I think just like having community. Like I'm never bored. Like I have a lover who is amazing, and I'm very blessed with that. My spiritual work, just like my spiral work, like please do the spiral. If not, meditation is great.
How can people find out about the spiral?
They could just go to my Instagram. So follow me at Erika Briones, and I have a link tree. I just added it. So they can go there, they can book with me, and anyone who signs on with if they come through you, then you also get a referral fee. So just wanted to share that as a gift for your listeners. They get 10% off if they, sign on with Johnny, cool. London dating coach.
That's great. So, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I mean, is there anything that you want to kind of add that we haven't discussed? And we've probably got like a few more minutes left now.
Okay. I hope we do another podcast because I actually don't know if we recorded it, but I know that, there's technology to make this happen. That's just like my nerdy side. What else? I could do a little sample of a clear, just like a little demo.
Yeah, be great.
Yeah. So you have an idea.
Uh-huh.
So we could do something around, I don't know, what's something that your audience has emotions around?
I would say fear.
Fear
of talking to someone that perhaps they desire, they find attractive.
Okay, so fear around talking to someone. So it just like kind of like call in the energy to just like tap into the collective energy for your audience. Okay, so I would say, let's look at the element: fire, earth, metal, water, bladder, paralyzed will. So the emotion is paralyzed will. Money, not enough money. So when it comes to money, it's like I don't feel valuable. I don't feel like I'm making enough money to be seen by the right woman, by the dream woman. So it's almost like putting pressure on themselves to perform, to succeed. time, not enough time. There's not enough hours in the day. Role as an entrepreneur, role as a man. So paralyzed will is in the pelvic floor. So for anyone who's watching, they can rub their pelvic. If not, you can, or you can hold these.
We'll ask them to do what?
Hold these points. So they would just hold these points, and then they would just clear it. So this is we're communicating to the subconscious mind. And
so are we tapping into chakra points right now? Is this what?
This is the water. This is the water element. So we're actually clearing paralyzed will around not enough money. So we're clearing the energy around not enough money.
Would you take a deep breath and then you exhale?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we're talking to your subconscious about not enough money, not enough time as a man, and releasing that. And you can release the points.
Okay, so it's using elements of meditation also, right?
I mean, meditation would be more like implementation. So this is just like kinesiology. We're actually just talking to the body. So the body has different, like it's a developed nervous system. So for the pelvic floor, this is actually, the bladder relates to pressure. Mm-hmm. And this is like, if you feel so pressured, maybe you have an overactive bladder. But in the bladder, there's anxiety, there's paralyzed will, there's terror. And it's interesting because with the corona, it's actually the metal element. The metal is in the lungs. And there's a lot of grief, there's a lot of guilt, there's regret. So if you're having emotions around that, we can definitely look at maybe your relationship to this pandemic. So if anyone wants to clear some anxiety around that, I'm happy to do so as well.
It's all this sort of work is new to me, but I do recognize certain elements you're kind of talking about.
Yeah, there's a little bit of NLP too, which I'm really, it's amazing. Like you get to learn NLP. It's all intricately linked to language patterns.
Yes, I believe, because I use NLP for the inner dialogue and the outer dialogue. So I'm constantly using NLP to allow my clients of their abilities. There's a little bit of NLP there as well.
Yeah. I want to learn so much. Oops. What you did there. Yeah. I would love to chat later about NLP because it's something that I know that it's a huge element in our industry, is to really shift and pivot the mind about people's languages. And that's what we get to do. And language holds a lot of emotional weight and charge.
It really does.
Yeah.
It really does. I'm constantly flushing negativity out of my clients' vocabulary, their mindset, there's everything around them. And it's really interesting because of how clients describe their situation. I go, how's your situation with women? It's a catastrophe. Wow, it's a catastrophe. When I think of the word catastrophe, I have that image in my head of the atom bomb blowing up. That's a catastrophe. And you're associating that image with how you see your relationship with women. I mean, that you need to change that image and just change that label on that word, because it's not a catastrophe.
Right. What about when people say, I don't want to hurt you? What kind of images do you get?
I don't want to hurt you. What images come to mind? Well, someone attacking me with a blade or something, I guess, You there? Erika?
Yeah, the internet's a little bit. Yes.
Yeah. You said about what image comes to mind when someone says conversation, and we can really get into some more juicier things. So let's just keep it rolling.
There we go.
Erika.
Yeah.
So to continue what we were talking about. you asked me what image comes to mind when I hear the words, I don't want to hurt you. Well, the image that comes to my mind is of someone being quite physical with me, perhaps with a knife or something like that. That's the image that comes into my head.
Yeah, that's the same thing.
Right.
And energetically, like people have that in their subconscious, right? Like when I do a clearing with people, I had a woman who said that she had a fear of water, which related to her sexuality. And that made her behave a weird way. So it's really interesting how words have a certain, like a meme or a GIF in the back of the mind.
100%. I mean, it's just we associate emotion with certain words. It's like that, right? I go, what are your sticking points? Well, I have a fear of approaching women. Okay, so you're excited about approaching women. You're excited about approaching women. And that language chain allows someone to do something that they actually want in their life. It makes sense. Your body is responding to something in front of you that you desire. It's just the label you've chose to put on it is of a negative one. So if you change it to a positive one, it allows you. So it's like that simple. It's just trying to work out what the negative label is in the thing that they're trying to describe they have an issue with. I love it. It's fun.
I know. Now I'm going to be really thinking about these words now.
I gave a great one to my client today. He was going on a date today, and I said, okay, why don't you ask this question? And what would you allow yourself to experience if there were no consequences? What would you allow yourself to experience if there were no consequences? Just notice how open your mind travels.
Allow, yeah.
Yeah, allow, experience, like, allow, explore. Experience. Yeah. And you can add more on. Free. What would you allow yourself to experience if there were no consequences? A world free from judgment. A world that allows you to explore any desire you wish.
I would just say play, creativity,
exactly,
satisfaction.
Exactly, all positive things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I say that's just an example.
So that's NLP.
Yeah. I mean, it's an example. That would be an example of outer dialogue, where I'd help them. But inner dialogue, is all about the sort of changing the labels to the feelings that they're having, so you get more positive outcomes as opposed to negative ones. That's I enjoy that work.
I do. I feel like I'm gonna definitely have to take an NLP course.
That's some great books you could read.
Yeah, I mean, I think our first interview we talked about Ross Jeffries, and we talked about like NLP in Ross our first interview years ago.
Yeah. I mean, that was how many years ago was that when we jumped on that? Was that a year ago or was that 2 years ago?
I think that was a year ago.
Time flies so quickly. Ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait to meet you after this whole Rona thing ends. I know it's gonna definitely impact dating. Mm-hmm. I think I would love to like do another podcast and just like hear how dating is going to be shaped after this, or how to really like date during these times.
I think there's been no better time to date right now. I really mean that. There is no better time to meet someone new for the first time right now. Simply put, everyone is available. Even in business, for example, right? That person that you couldn't get hold of because of their busy operational kind of lifestyle, they're caught up in, the day-to-day work, you could pick up the phone and get access to that person right now. And it's the same with dating. Everyone is lonely. Everyone is bored. All of the external stimulation places are shut. Nightclubs, bars, hotels. Very few flights are still operating. So we're just kind of forced into this virtual space, and these virtual spaces have become the new nightclubs. Even the people that were too cool for school to go on these apps, they're on there now. They've just been forced in that direction.
Yeah.
So it's a great opportunity to meet someone new for the first time. And I also think because there's no sort of razzle-dazzle things to kind of distract each other, it encourages you more to use your heart when it comes to communicating with these individuals. So
Yeah,
a lot of people
I
saying,
love
oh,
that.
a lot of people saying, oh, like everything's on hold, the dating stuff, work. I mean, even work, there's a lot of opportunity right now, for the people out there just kind of sitting there moaning about things, playing PlayStation. Well, really, you're missing a trick. Like, now's
Yeah,
the
if
time to
you're
like create a side hustle, or a side business, or a project. Whatever that thing was that you were moaning about because you didn't have enough time. You've got the time now.
Yeah, and again, like I said before, what stops people is procrastination, which is related to your sexuality. So if you're like, oh, I just, you know, can't get the girl or I can't date this person, it's because it's really your mind that's stopping you. That's the thing. It's like
Yeah,
when you start to study the mind, human potential, you realize it's your story that gets in the
100%.
way.
I do a great trick with my clients. I tell them to write down all of the reasons why they're not getting the success they deserve in their life. For example, it might be, let's go back to the approach, for example, right? They see someone in a bar or a hotel bar, lounge bar, club, whatever the social venue is. I go, write me all the reasons of what are all of your excuses? They write down all of our excuses. And now I go, all right, scribble out that word excuses and put this title, Icebreakers. So maybe it's I can't speak to that person because she looks too busy, or she doesn't look friendly, right? So let's say it's the
Yeah.
not friendly looking one. The reframe is, I almost wasn't going to come over and say hello because you didn't look too friendly, but I had to come over and find out. You see? So it's just turning those excuses
Wow.
into actions. Oh, I can't do it because they got headphones on. You know what? I almost wasn't going to come over and say hello because I saw you had headphones, but I thought, fuck it, I'm going to do it anyway. So it's just turning those like problems into
Yeah.
solutions.
Yeah. So are people mostly dating right now through apps or like
Yeah,
social media? Is that what?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I always say to my clients, like, online dating, the real online dating is social media. That's that because everyone's online, right? And then you've got the tier under that, which is the apps, okay? But I feel that the better quality people are on social media, and you can get access to them better. You don't have to just see if you get matched or all this kind of nonsense,
Yeah.
And it's easy, sparking up a conversation with someone online. I mean, there's plenty of things to talk about. It's all there in the shop window on their Instagram channel, on the stories. We're constantly giving each other topics to talk about.
There's always things to talk about.
Yeah, you just got to take the risk to get the reward. A lot of people are just not even doing that. Now is the best time to meet someone. Everyone's lonely and everyone's horny.
Oh yeah, definitely. And if anyone wants to do a sex clear, I can definitely support you.
What's
Yeah.
a sex clear? It's
A
what
sex
to
clear is we really look at your relationship to sexuality. We look at your relationship to intimacy,
Mhm.
your relationship to porn. It's a case by case. I
Right.
custom tailor it based on your needs. So if someone's like, I have a porn addiction, we'll look at the different components of porn. It's, oh, why are you watching porn? And then we'll
Mm.
look at the emotions behind that, and then we'll
Mm.
do some integration. I might have them
It's those questions, those
do some,
direct questions are so important. They really do
yeah,
highlight the
reframe.
core issue. Have you ever worked
Yeah,
with
just
anyone
create
that's like, sorry to cut in, but have you ever worked with anyone that's
people because
lusty?
they were really lusty. I call it the dopamine dick effect.
Yeah, right. Just say that.
The dopamine dick. But it was really, it comes down to like people have sex for multiple. Your laugh is contagious.
Oh God.
I shouldn't say that word right now,
Uh,
contagious. Um, People have sex for procreation, like I just need to have a baby.
mhm.
The other one is recreation. Recreational sex is like I'm doing it because I'm actually stressed out. I'm uncomfortable to sit with myself. The third one is for pleasure because it just feels good. And then, of course, sex magic. You know, I'm doing sex because I want to like birth something new.
Sex magic, you call that?
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Sex magic. I like that.
Yeah. You haven't heard of sex magic?
No, I don't. No, sex magic. That's a good one.
That is, yeah, it's actually a thing, you know, in Tantra. Okay. It's about like when you're having, it's like you have a vision board, but when you're having self-pleasure, you're actually visualizing your vision board like it's actually out in the ethers, right?
Okay.
So it's like for example, I'm envisioning that I want a boat. This was in my dreams last night. I don't know. I had a boat in my dreams.
Right.
And then you're like, I really want this boat. So you're like thinking about your orgasm connected to all the orgasms in the world. And then when you're close to like letting go, releasing, then you let go of the expectations. But
so the boat just sails off.
Yeah.
Out to the sea as you climax.
Yeah. I mean, I interviewed Laurie Handlers. Laurie Handlers is a sex expert. She talks about sex magic. She was trying to manifest a boat. And I don't know, later she just kept getting flyers for a boat. She just kept getting like all these flyers for a boat. She saw a boat. She was invited to a yacht party. She's like, I guess it works.
Oh, I'm going to try that. And we'll do the next live. We'll do the next live on a boat.
Yes, we'll do a boat one. Yeah, I mean, you guys can try it. You know, I think I have like a YouTube video where I talk about it. I might as well post it later. But it's fun, you know. I'm surprised you haven't. Oh yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Maybe if we can all collectively like use our sex magic, our orgasms to like get out of this whole Corona thing, maybe we can.
Well, we can try. We can try it.
Well, you know how there's like group meditations and everyone's like group meditation party? We could do a sex magic party where we're all like...
it'd be an interesting Zoom session, that one.
Oh my goodness, I would love to do that.
Oh God. Jeez.
That would be fun.
All right. Well, I think we'll wrap it up on that note. On definitely a high. Erika, how can people find out about you? Where you're going to direct them? And what have you got like that you're kind of currently doing or something coming up?
Dakini Touch. Dakini Touch is a Tantra BDSM course with modules, journal prompts, videos, a PDF of how they can weave Tantra and BDSM together.
Yeah, it sounds really, I was just about to say, Tantra BDSM, that's super unique. I wouldn't even imagine those worlds like meshing together. It's like the dark side meshing together of the light. Yeah?
Exactly. This is inspired by Urban Tantra, but Dakini Touch, there's 8 modules. First module, I'm not even going to go into it. Just go to erikabriones.com and they will, you know, see they can go to my offerings page and go click on Dakini Touch. And it's only $69 right now.
It's nothing.
So
great.
Yeah, it's nothing. It's easy. So if you're bored, if you're like, I don't know what to do, then you get to play and you get to explore. There's a lot of sexy things in the Dakini Touch modules, but you definitely get to connect with yourself.
I really love like your whole journey, Erika. Like, you know, and you're still sort of like you're able to work with sex in such a positive way, in a way that I can see is clearly, you know, been part of your healing.
Yeah, it is. And, you know, doing these podcasts, sharing the story is part of the journey. And it's like coming clean every time and it gets easier every time.
Yeah, good for you. And I wanted to say again, thank you for sharing everything. It's been so valuable. We got lots of great content from this broadcast. Hopefully we can keep both of these videos and repurpose them and float them around. But yeah, thank you again. It's been awesome. And yeah, we got to definitely do another one soon.
Yeah. Thank you, Johnny.
Cool. All right. Okay, darling.
Okay.
Take
Bye.
care. Thank you. Bye. So there we have it, guys. What a woman. Extraordinary story, and lots of great content. Really happy with the outcome of that, and some funny moments too. You know, I'm glad we left it on a high. It was great. So guys, thank you again for tuning in. Remember, you guys make the show, right? If you don't come on, then I don't even bother putting these together, right? I do it because this is a passion of mine. I do it because I want to help you guys. And this, again, I said, this is the first episode that I'm doing through this pandemic era where I'm actually inviting on my friends, right? People who I've met along the way on my 15-year journey as a coach. They're going to be, maybe they might be celebrities, they might be coaches, they might be therapists, they might be successful businessmen, entrepreneurs, people in the hospitality industry, who knows, right? But stay tuned this week and next for more exclusive live broadcasts from me and my extended family. Guys, stay safe and be sensible, and I'll see you guys again soon. God bless.